story takes another turn next Sunday at a slightly earlier time of 9 o'clock here on BBC1. If you'd like a Rhodes Viewer's Guide, then send a cheque for £4.95 payable to BBC Education. To Rhodes Viewer's Guide, PO Box 7, London W5 2GQ.
A family reunion.
People grown very fond of you. And Lily.
Should have been a joyful occasion.
Talk to her. Listen to her.
But behind closed doors, it was a very different bedtime story.
Face a bit of a mess. A lot of bruising to the upper body, too. The witness is certain for once. Big Ben was sounding 9 o'clock.
Just 10 minutes. That's what she's doing.
And the truth is closing in on Beck. Wednesday, 9:30 on BBC1. In the first of a brand new series, Everyman exposes an extraordinary plot to kill 12,000 German SS officers.
They felt that they had a duty to carry out this punishment on those who had murdered massacres.
In 1946, Jewish activists planned their revenge.
Please don't forget that we are not born murderers.
An eye for an eye.
What's quite natural is I wanted to kill him. I admit it, and I'm not ashamed of it.
The first in a new series of Everyman. Tonight at 10 to 11 on BBC1.
There's Grand Prix Snooker over on BBC2 featuring Alain Robidoux and Gary Wilkinson. Here on BBC1, Damon Hill and the turbocharged Murray Walker pull up alongside Clive Anderson in 15 minutes. The main evening news first on BBC1 with Michael Burke.
The Belgian Prime Minister has promised changes in his country's constitution after 250,000 people marched in protest at the handling of the child sex scandal there. Lawyers have criticised the Sunday paper for publishing evidence in the Rachel Nickell case that wasn't given to the jury. And Newcastle put 5 goals past Manchester United, pushing them to their worst defeat for 12 years. Good evening. More than 250,000 Belgians have marched through Brussels in protest at the authorities' handling of the country's child sex and murder scandal. Special trains and buses ferried protesters from all over the country to the city. Tonight, Belgium's Prime Minister Jean-Luc Dehaene has promised changes to the constitution to end political promotions in the justice system.
Even the widest boulevards of central Brussels were overwhelmed. Hundreds of thousands of ordinary families, a sea of white balloons, white flowers. It was the White March that families of the murdered and missing girls had asked for. They are convinced a cover-up is protecting police and politicians who had links with the paedophiles and could have stopped the killings.
For
the 4 girls whose bodies have been found, said one mother, it's too late. But there must be change, she said. And it's the campaigning determination of the families which produced today's response. And ordinary people, most of whom have never marched or protested in their lives.
From the government, the police, everybody is involved in this problem, so they want to see real changes.
With this huge force of ordinary Belgians on the march, the government is struggling to keep up with the rising tide of public anger. And Belgium's Prime Minister took action even as the march was still going on. Jean-Luc Dehaene told relatives the constitution must be changed, stopping the political appointment of judges, which has meant they owe allegiance to particular parties.
We agree that there are a certain number of reforms necessary in our justice system, and where the parents place the accent most is that the rights of the victims must be much more elaborated in our system of justice.
The march ended peacefully despite its immense scale. A few people did break away, pelting police with eggs, but it was the dignified power of the majority which apparently forced the government to consider starting a fundamental clean-up of Belgian public life. James Robbins, BBC News, Brussels.
Here, lawyers have strongly attacked the decision of a Sunday newspaper to publish evidence not put before the jury in the Rachel Nickell case. The Mail on Sunday said the public had a right to know and has invited Colin Stagg, the man acquitted of her murder, to respond to the allegations that they've printed.
This was Colin Stagg's response to today's newspaper article. He set it alight and tossed it onto the grass in front of his South London home. He left it to a friend to denounce the newspaper's decision to publish details of police evidence that was never put to a jury.
You can't accuse somebody with no evidence whatsoever. There's no evidence against her.
Rachel Nickell was stabbed in July 1992 whilst walking on Wimbledon Common with her 2-year-old son. In 1994, Colin Stagg was acquitted of the murder after the judge ruled that information gathered by a female police undercover officer was inadmissible. The prosecution case collapsed before a jury could hear the evidence. Speaking afterwards, Colin Stagg insisted he was innocent.
Don't be angry with me because I didn't do it. If you're going to be angry with someone, be angry with the real murderer.
But today, the Mail on Sunday published what it says are the pieces of evidence which were never put to a jury. They include several statements from witnesses in which Colin Stagg's name appears. One of Mr. Stagg's barristers described the newspaper's actions as sleazy and said his client was never given the chance to prove his innocence.
It wasn't his fault that the Crown Prosecution Service, armed with all this information, none of this is new, came to the decision to offer no evidence against him. If the trial had continued, he would have continued to protest his innocence, as he always has, and would have called in excess of 55 witnesses of fact to demonstrate his innocence.
But this afternoon, the newspaper was unmoved.
And I would strongly defend, and I'm sure the Mail on Sunday will strongly defend, any allegation of defamation. Colin Stagg, no doubt, will wish to answer in the Mail on Sunday the points that have been raised by the depositions that we published today.
Rachel
I never knew what he was thinking, or what he'd been